Some people do not need an introduction. Here is Rich Miller.
Happy holidays, everybody. Thank you for coming. There's an ambulance outside. Did you see that? I asked Green what the ambulance was doing here. He said, just in case. I said, just in case what? He said, just in case. So I don't know if it's maybe that if I bomb so bad, they'll take me away in the ambulance, or that perhaps some of you might faint. Try not to let either of those two things happen. Thank you so much for the invitation to speak here. The last time I was here was my birthday party, and things are going to be a little different at this one. Yeah, even though Skip Saviano's here, but he's not speaking, and therefore there will be no F-bombs in the presentation. The AFL-CIO called me the other day, and they said they had 4 extra tickets, and they let me hand them out. And they said they just couldn't be anti-union people, so that ruled out Pat Quinn and Rahm Emanuel right away. Yeah, very few labor activists in the room. I gave one. I offered one to Donnie Trotter, and he said yes, but then he had a meeting today with his attorney, so he couldn't make it. And it's just as well since we found out that they don't have a metal detector at the door. He got in a little trouble. You may have seen this on Channel 2 the other day. He used the word cracker. Some white people say cracker, but it's actually pronounced cracker. And it's and they called it on Channel 2. They said it was a slur against white people. That's really not true. And let me give you an example. If you reacted to President Obama's election or re-election by purchasing a gun, you a cracker. And that's not a slur. I wish Trotter was here for that one. I offered another ticket to Todd Vandermeide, and he couldn't make it. He had a family thing that he couldn't get away from. He's with Local 150 of the operating engineers, in case you don't know who Todd is. He's also with ABATE, those are the anti-motorcycle helmet people, and the NRA. But again, just as well, since there is no metal detector here. Skip Saviano was the third person that got a ticket. And you know, who'd have thunk that Trotter would be going to prison before Saviano? I'm sorry, Skip's a great guy. He's a great guy, I love him. I don't know, where is he? Where is he? He's out there somewhere. There he is in the back, in the far back. His advice to me from all the years, his advice to everybody is that you can do the favor, just never take the money. And that's why he's still on the outside. But don't tell Madigan that I said he was a great guy, because he might finance a competitor. The 4th ticket went to Anders Lindahl. Anders is the spokesman for AFSCME, Council 31. And I don't have a joke about Anders, because I don't want 50 green t-shirted AFSCME members following me around for everywhere I go for the rest of eternity, screaming about how I'm so anti-union. AFSCME, AFSCME's been getting hit on all sides, in all seriousness. They have a contract negotiation that's been going on for 10 years. I have no idea, but the governor is playing hardball. He's asked for major givebacks. The union's not used to giving anything back, and they've rejected that. They passed a bill in the spring that allows the government to cut subsidies for health insurance for workers and retirees. The governor is closing, or trying to close, going through the court system, several state facilities. And then, of course, there's pensions. And so, again, they're just being hit on all sides. And the interesting thing is that while the opposition, the Tribune and Civic Federation, et cetera, they're all pretty united against AFSCME. There's also a split in labor there as well. And Local 150 is, the operating engineers, is part of the reason for that. They, remember when they went on strike about a year ago and all the construction on the expressway stopped? They settled that strike, and part of the settlement was thank you. Thank you very much. Vodka, thank you. I used to drink whiskey, but I don't do that anymore. Twice a month instead of 30 days a month. Anyway, back to the contract. 4 cents an hour from the workers went into a political action committee fund. That raised $1 million this year alone. And they're talking about tripling that to 12 cents an hour, which for the 2014 cycle will mean that Local 150 will have $6 million to spend. So you can see why everybody's running towards them. They want a capital bill, they want a constitutional amendment, they want to prevent money being diverted from the road fund. They want a good bond rating. Well, you can always wish. What does a good bond rating mean? It means pension reform, it means cutting spending. 2 things, closing facilities, et cetera. 2 things that AFSCME has been historically against. But AFSCME can't raise $6 million for the next cycle. 150 may very well be able to do so. So this is creating this movement behind the scenes toward their position. However, pension reform isn't done yet. The governor, as you know, has said that he wants pension reform done by January 9th. That's when the new General Assembly is sworn in. So the lame duck session, as it's called, after January 1st, it only takes 50% plus 1 to pass a vote on a bill with an immediate effective date in both chambers. Pretty much everybody in this room knows that. So he wanted pension reform there, but it's not ready yet. He wants gaming. He wants gay marriage. He wants new taxes and fees for the current capital bill totaling about $300 million. And now he's added assault weapons ban to that pile. He did that yesterday. So that's what? How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Major bills. And we haven't even talked about medical marijuana, because I forgot. I spaced it out. But here's the problem. The Senate, Democrats, are talking about canceling several days of that special, or of that lame duck session. They were supposed to come back on January 2nd, the jerks, and go through the 9th. And now they're talking about coming back maybe on Sunday the 6th, which means they really won't do anything on Sunday. They'll just have a late afternoon, early evening, half-an-hour session, get paid, and go out. And then 7th and 8th would be the days that they would do anything. The 9th, really, you can't do much because there's all these planned things for the inauguration of the new members. Now, so why are they considering canceling these days? Again, pension reform is stalled. We don't have a bill yet. There is some movement towards a solution, but there is no bill. There is no real, even agreement on what they want to do, and there is no real votes to pass anything that they've talked about so far. Now, the incoming class, believe it or not, even though it's more Democratic in both chambers, but several of the new members that were elected in November, Democrats, are conservative. There are people, several of them, who have pledged to vote for pension reform. Some of them no, but quite a few yes. Andy Bernard, for instance, pledged not to even accept a pension. He won for a state senate district in central southern Illinois, and his if I was his wife, I'd divorce him because he was the chief of staff for John Cullerton, making about $150,000 a year. He quit that to become a state senator, making $70,000 a year, and now he's saying no pension, so he's going to have to go get a part-time job. What would you do if he was your husband? So you might ask, well, they passed the income tax, they passed civil unions, they passed the death penalty abolition in the last lame duck session. Why can't they do all this stuff in this lame duck session? Well, that was all Democrat stuff, right? It's hard to keep a Democrat from voting for an income tax increase. It's and the same for civil unions and death penalty. I mean, these are Democratic Party ideals. Some of them were more surprising than others. The income tax increase was the least surprising of all. But there is, for instance, right now there's no majority yet in the House for gay marriage. Now it could be just because it's too early, right? They just passed civil unions a couple years ago. But the mayor, Rahm Emanuel, will be working hard on it. The governor will be working on it. And several other prominent people will be working hard to pass this bill. But so far, they haven't got it done yet. On gaming, Mike Madigan, the speaker, like I got to say that, Madigan, not Lisa, the other one, has once again recused himself, as subscribers know. Who are my subscribers in here, by the way? All right, so if you were reading, you know that he recused himself last week from the gaming negotiations. Again, back in the, as subscribers know, in the 90s, it's really just water. He recused himself because he had a client who was interested in a Lake County casino. And then all of a sudden, a few weeks ago, a couple months ago, whatever it was ago, he unrecused himself and he appointed one of his top guys to work out gaming negotiations. And they were making really good progress, and all of a sudden, something happened, and maybe Steve Brown can follow up here, and yeah, right, like he'll say anything. And it's under review. I can pretty much write his response before even calling him. Anyway, he recused himself again. So I don't know if he got another client or something happened, but he's got some sort of conflict. Recused himself again. And gaming really requires everybody pulling in the same direction, gaming expansion. And so some gaming lobbyists that I've talked to have been told there's not going to be a gaming bill in January. Moving right along. If all this stuff crashes and burns, if nothing happens, and I'm not saying that nothing's going to happen, I'm just saying if nothing happens, this is going to be a pretty big setback for the governor, as Jack Levin would attest to, so he's going to try to work very hard. I thought about rewriting the end of this speech because you were sitting right there in front of me. Then I thought, ah, the hell with it. Right. The governor had a pretty decent spring session. It wasn't phenomenal, but it was pretty good. I was coming around, writing stuff. I wrote some columns and some Capitol faxes and some blog posts about how he was doing much better. And I think since the session has ended, he started to backslide a little bit into the governor who can't get things done. And but in the spring, starting last fall, he listened to people like Jack, listen to people who said, hey, how about you think about it a little bit? Let's talk about things a little bit before you go out and make some big announcement. It was a foreign concept, but he figured it out, and he did a lot better. Again, he's no George Ryan, but, who is? And he's not going to end up there either. Hopefully. Anyway, since then, he's backslid, unfortunately. And now we've got these huge issues on the table for the January lame duck session, and he's created this gigantic mountain, and it's very possible that nothing's gonna get done. So I wish I could bring you some good news. Pension reform, something has to be done because it's eating up the budget. It's eating up the budget alive. I don't like the idea at all of taking money from little old ladies. It kind of disgusts me, particularly when there are people out there, and they know who they are. Well, Ty Fainer and the Tribune editorial board, just to name a few, who have painted this as a bunch of greedy, overpaid scam artists who are getting these gigantic pensions. Now, it's not to say there aren't some greedy, overpaid scam artists drawing pensions that they don't deserve. I don't disagree with that. There are. But the majority of people that are getting pensions right now are not that. You think about a 75, 80-year-old man or woman who worked all their lives really hard, and now there are people demanding that they be stripped of their health insurance, of their security. And it's pretty much disgusting. And it's one reason why pension reform can't pass right now the way it is. And I don't blame them. On the other hand, something has got to be done. Something has got to be done, man, or there's not going to be money for anything else. Now, back in the 80s, when they did the compounded COLA, the union had a lot of retirees who were making like $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a year on retirement. And so their income went up every year based on their retirement amount. So if they retired from the state at $8,000 in 1965, right, their retirement increase every year was based on that $8,000. And so they changed it to compounded COLA. And so it was based on the previous years. And that really helped some of these people who went through the 70s and the ravages of the inflationary 70s and basically got wiped out. It really helped them. The problem is, or not the problem, well, the reality is that after that happened, AFSCME also started getting really good contracts from the state. Now, you know, nobody held a gun to Jim Thompson's head or Jim Edgar or George Ryan or Rod Blagojevich or Pat Quinn. Nobody has ever said, you gotta do this. It's, you know, a union is designed to get as much money and benefits for its members as it can. I always blame management when there's a problem. It's not the workers' fault, for the most part. If the workers aren't working right, it's management's problem because they're not doing the work that they're supposed to do. And in this case, management, meaning the governor, whoever the governor was, kept giving these big, significant raises to AFSCME, contract after contract after contract after contract. Again, I'm not blaming AFSCME for that. God love them, man. You know, I wish I was in AFSCME. Because your subscription price would be about $6,000 a year. Of course, I'd probably only have 30 subscribers, but that wouldn't be so bad. It's a lot less work to do. Anyway, so now to the point where we have some really well-paid state employees, well-paid teachers. They're not the highest paid in the world, but they are pretty well paid, the teachers, I mean. The AFSCME is some of the highest paid in the country here in Illinois. And it's gotten to the point where the system just can't handle it. So something has to be done. And I think the employees ought to start thinking more about the retirees and really ought to step up to save the retirees, the current retirees, from undue harm. Now, that's probably asking too much, but it is my own opinion. And Anders will probably have 50 green t-shirted people following me around for the rest of my life for saying this today. But that's what I believe. Something has to be done because the state can't afford this. It just simply can't afford it. And so the union needs to step up. And I'm going to end my speech with that. Thank you again very much for inviting me.
Cut the end. Okay. No big deal. People have left Miller even during the beginning of the speech. Where's City Club? City Club B, raise your hand if you have a question for this gentleman. She will be collecting the questions. We have a couple already. They're all afraid of you.
No, they're not.
I'm trying to be nice. Greg Bales, when do you sleep?
Usually take a nap in the afternoon during caption contests, basically. I sleep a lot on the weekends.
State's going to hell, and that's the first question. Okay.
Maybe they are afraid of me.
However, Professor Green has one.
Okay, ask.
Give us one trend you have seen over the long number of years you have been observing the Illinois General Assembly. One trend. Be it good, be it bad, or just make up something.
There's several, but I'll say that legislators are getting more bland as we've progressed. The people who are being recruited tend to be younger, more likely to be women, married, PTA types. They don't go out a lot. So they're a little bit more on the bland side. They ain't hanging out with me and Skip at 3 in the morning. And if they were, we wouldn't tell you. Next question.
I got him. You don't want to get too much of it. This is from board member Ed Mazer. Comment about suburban and other districts and how they're picking up same share of pension costs. You can handle that?
Yeah.
Okay.
The question is basically about the cost shift, and it's a good idea in theory, as in my opinion, as long as it's done in a way that allows school districts and universities to plan for it and budget for it. If it's a half a point, the latest plan that was unveiled a few weeks ago by some rank and file House members, bipartisan group of House members, was a half a point of payroll per year. And they said that they didn't even have to start that for a few years to give the current union contracts time to expire and get renegotiated. A half a point of payroll per year is not really all that, it shouldn't be all that bad. It shouldn't be. And it should be budgetable. The other thing that they probably should do is let them levy it so that it doesn't apply to the cap, which is going to create all kinds of problems because it could result in tax hikes. But you don't want teachers getting laid off that really need to be there because of this. So I think they could do this. They really should do this because while the General Assembly controls the laws on governing pensions, the locals control how much money the state has to pay by by giving raises to administrators, teachers, and what have you. And that's just, it's uncontrollable. And there needs to be a way to put some real sort of market forces into that, and I think it's a good idea.
All right, let's cut the filibusters. All right, this is from,
Well, it's not an easy question.
well, what the hell? What do you expect? You're at the City Club. Francis, is it Rashawn? Is that your name? From Skokie Library. Well, it's Francis, right? Okay, it's a very good question, even if I can't pronounce your last name. By the way, this is a really good question, and you got to do this in less than a minute. Mr. Miller, what gave you the idea for Capital Facts, and what does it take to maintain it? This is not a setup question.
I was working for a company called Hannah Information Service, and I was making $21,000 a year, and they were always about to go out of business. And I was writing a column called the Hannah Report every day, 5 days a week, 500 words, and I decided that, and it become this big thing within the company, is pretty much keeping it afloat. And I thought, $21,000 a year, man, I'm 30 years old. I need to come up with my own ideas. So a year later, I started this company. I had a backup plan in case the idea didn't work. I was going to sell everything I own. I was going to buy a pickup truck and a power washer, move to Florida, and start a bikini car wash. Thankfully, that didn't happen. Or I don't know. Some days I wonder. What does it take to keep it going? It's just, you just constant motion, constant work. And it's not really work. My father worked in a couple of different factories. My mom was a school teacher. My mom worked at a Shapiro Mental Developmental Center for a couple of years. They worked, all right? It's a lot of fun. And as long as I'm having fun, I'm going to keep doing it. Next question.
There'll be a slight moment for everyone to think about what in the hell a Miller bikini car wash would be.
It wouldn't be me in a bikini, all right?
I misconstrued. That would really, well, I can't give away the special surprise gift for you, so I have to keep going. This is from Jill Zwick. Do you believe, by the way, Ms. Zwick, thank you for the clear printing. Do you believe the closing of mental health centers is still a good idea without some new government regulations? Without gun registration. Regulations. RE registration.
We get the idea.
Let's take two. By the way, very good printing. I might add, very good printing. Do you believe the closing of mental health centers is still a good idea without some new gun regulations, RE registration? There's the question, damn it.
Well, the answer is, the governor's talking about assault weapons bans and high-capacity magazine bans. But this needs to be addressed. We have crazy people running around shooting people, all right? So one part of the problem is the guns that they are using and the magazines that they are using, the bullets that they are using. But the other part of the problem is we got crazy people running around. Why aren't those people in institutions? And so we need more public education. We need a lot more public education. We need to destigmatize some of this stuff so that people aren't afraid to go in and get some help. Now, this recent tragedy, it's difficult to peg. They had plenty of money. It wasn't that they couldn't afford access to it. It just crazy people, and we have to get crazy people the help that they need, keep them from getting guns, and keep them off the street if necessary. And that it's easier said than done, but it's also a necessity that we finally address this in the nation. And we can't just focus on one side of this issue. Yes, I can see the argument made by some people on some of these items, but nobody's talking about the other side. And thank you so much for your question, Joe. And so you're going to close down these facilities. Geez, you got to make sure that there's places for people. And the way the state pays so late, who the heck would want to have, who would want to have a facility for the mentally ill if the state's going to pay you a year late? Judy Topinka, the controller, can attest to how late these places are getting paid. One of the reasons that I did my birthday party in March was to benefit Lutheran Social Services of Illinois. We raised about 60 grand for them here and at a different party in Springfield. These groups do such good work, and the state treats them like dirt. And it's time that all these groups, not just the ones with mentally ill, but all of them, stop getting treated this way.
Before Miller gets a humanitarian award, which we know it's a bit of a stretch, let's get back to the other side of Rich Miller, the dark side.
All right. This is why I didn't want him reading the damn cards.
As I was saying, Controller Topinka, this is from Dave Lundy, a well-known conservative. Is there any hope for Illinois to have two political parties?
Well, it does. Judy Barr is controller, right? She was elected. Mark Kirk, U.S. Senator, was elected 2 years ago. Dan Rutherford, Treasurer, elected 2 years ago. They have people statewide, just not in the Senate. Yeah, there is, but there's this wing of the Republican Party that says, oh, we don't want to just be like the Democrats. Well, let me tell you something, man. The state is not exactly a hardcore Republican state. You're going to have to be a little bit more like the Democratic Party if you want to get elected. Okay?
All right. Oh, don't keep applauding. Come on.
They're good answers.
I'll grade them. Now, Mr. Brown, you may want to leave the room. All the other questions have to do. What are you doing?
I'm reading text from Anders Lindahl.
I thought he was a Dutch painter.
He sent me like 5 texts.
All right. Well, he should have been here. All right. These all deal with.
He's here.
These all deal with the speaker. So basically, your job and the future of Capitol Facts could be at stake. Here we go. Matt Diertrich from Reboot Illinois. We have 2 questions from Reboot Illinois. We only have one. This is
only one good one?
Baker versus Carr. One company, one question. Here we go. How much responsibility for the state's financial trouble can fairly be assigned to Speaker Madigan?
I wouldn't say all of it. I don't say all of it. But, well, he asked a question, but Jim Edgar answered it in his publication. I think it was his publication. That he didn't blame, Edgar didn't blame the speaker. He blamed the governors in charge. But obviously, the speaker's been around since 1749 or whatever. So, and he is a pretty powerful dude, and therefore he does get some of the blame, obviously. I mean, when it didn't kill the pension fund, but, Judy, Controller Topinka, I call her Judy because I've known her since I used to sit in her office and smoke cigarettes with her when she was in the Illinois Senate. She pitched a fit in 2005 when the Democrats came out with their 2-year pension holiday. Pitched a fit and predicted real trouble from that. And it caused some trouble. And the speaker participated in that. I mean, every pension bill that passed, he was there. Some things just can't be foreseen the way they turn out to be. You could say that Jim Edgar is partially to blame because of the way the ramp was built. In other words, it was 50 years, 1995 to 2045, and nothing actually went up on payments until after he was gone, safely, and nothing really went up until after George was gone, and then it started to go up in the Rod, and Rod freaked out, and that's why they had to pension holidays and all that. And then it's just this ramp is so steep right now that it's causing huge problems. If it had been a more equitable ramp, the payments would have started out higher at the beginning. But that still means, though, that, we'd have run into this trouble 12 years ago instead of today, maybe 10 years ago instead of today. So there are things that just can't be foreseen that can, some numbers guy can tell you, yeah, this is really going to be bad, but man, that's 20 years from now. Who cares? Nobody will be alive. They're all alive and still in power. And some of them. So, yeah, I mean, he didn't have 20/20 foresight, for sure. He's been in power all this time, so for sure he's got to take some of the hit, but he didn't do it alone. There are other people in those rooms.
We got more. Hold it, turn around. After that question, you have to do that.
Yeah, whatever.
All right. Will
Get
Davis,
to it, Green.
Where are you, Will? Right over there. Any thoughts how the House might be will use its supermajority to move forward? Forward.
Yes. Speaking of Madigan, he's often said that other than the 2 years he spent in the minority under Lee Daniels, the worst 2 years of his career was when he had a supermajority in 91, 92. Because leading a chamber is like herding cats. And leading a chamber with a supermajority is like herding insane cats. People don't want to do anything, man. It's like, look, we got all these members. Why do I have to vote on this stupid bill? Why don't you get the guys that are going to lose next year to vote on this stupid bill? We can't save all those clowns. And the clowns that are up for re-election that are going to have tough races are like, why do I have to vote on this, man? I'm a target. Make these guys vote on it. So it gets tougher. It gets tougher. It also gets easier because groups like, for instance, the Black Caucus don't have an easy of a time of blocking things. They have to have more of their members together before they can block something. I mean, you think about it, in the Senate, you got to have 11 Democrats voting together to block a bill if the rest of the party is together. That's not easy. It's not easy. So there are things I think they can do, but again, I think a lot of these new members there are some exceptions. Mike Smitty, Dee Afsme from Northwest Illinois, and Dee Personal PAC too from Northwest Illinois. There are some exceptions, but a lot of these new members are more conservative and less into the whole, I'm a legislator, I'm big time stuff. They're more anti-establishment. So I don't know. I need to sit down with more of them. I usually don't get to know freshmen because they'll be gone soon, some of them. But I think I do need to sit down with a lot more of them and talk to them about it. But I think it's going to be refreshing and it's going to be fascinating. Refreshing, except unless you're a Senate Republican, and then it's going to be really depressing.
2 more questions.
Yes.
You're on a roll. This is the last Madigan question. Oh, this is from Judith Reese, former U of I trustee. Do you believe? Take a drink of water. Do you believe?
So that's so we know I'm not talking?
Yes. No, you're going to answer this question. I have nothing to do with it. Do you believe Lisa Madigan will run for governor in 2014? Or will she wait until the speaker retires? What a sandbag question. Judith Reese, thank you very much. Handle that one in a minute.
I had been pretty much convinced she wasn't going to run for governor in 2014 until I had a discussion with her on election night. I had a party that was paid for by Google. I didn't really get to enjoy the party much because I worked, but she was there, and we talked, and I said, well, what, maybe Supreme Court? Oh, boring, I ain't gonna go run for the Supreme Court, right? Well, I can't really go into much more what she said, but I kind of got the impression that she's really seriously considering a bid for governor. And we just saw the poll came out, public policy polling, 60-some% she would get against Pat Quinn. So she could pretty much announce and go to Miami for 6 months. And no offense, Jack, but I'm sure she'll have a spot for you in the new administration. Maybe one of those good union jobs. And I don't think, and I'm not, and there is going to be holy heck to pay if the speaker is still the speaker while she's running for governor. The other side of that, of course, is maybe we can get a governor who can finally work with the Speaker of the Illinois House of Representatives. But again, this isn't going to be an election like 2012 because Barack Obama's not going to be on the ticket. If the economy doesn't improve significantly, the Republicans will probably have a decent year. But, one of the biggest losers besides the Republican Party in this past election was, and I hate to keep coming back to them, was the Tribune editorial board because they were so strident for the past few years. And look what and they got nothing to show for it. They'll be the ones that'll be the most opposed to a Lisa Madigan candidacy, along with Jack Lavin's boss. And they will, nobody reads the editorial pages anymore. If they do, they just skim them and they don't believe it. So I'm not sure she has to wait. I'm not sure he's going to, his mom lived to 92, 91, 92. Yeah, he'll sponsor my death resolution. Go ahead and clap, Brown.
Doesn't have to be that old.
No, he doesn't have to be 90 to sponsor my death resolution.
All right, you ready?
That's done. That's done. The question's done. I hope I answered it, Judith.
I could give you the old Irish explanation that no Irishman leaves an office vertically, voluntarily, but I will not do that. All right, the last question.
Hooray!
It's not Karnak, okay? Breaking all rules because we have Rich Miller, who, as you know, really follows the rules, like saying he doesn't want to attack the Tribune editorial board, right? He just hates to do it.
So many times.
I know, you just hate it, every other issue. Madeline Dubeck, former reporter, now working with Reboot. This is the second question from Reboot, so this is a historic moment. It won't happen again. Here we go, Miller. It's a short question. Give us your pithiest answer. What will surprise us in Illinois in 2013? Good question to end with, in case you want to reread it while you're thinking. Don't look at me.
I have no idea, right? I mean, it's pretty much predictable. Now that Rod's in prison, safely away, the surprises have kind of left. So, I don't know. Here's one. I'll predict that one of these legislators has been busted or will be busted will get off. And there will be some public examination of some of these prosecutions. That's what I'll predict.
That answer in the state of Illinois doesn't take all that much courage, just for the record. How about a big round of applause for Rich Miller? We got some gifts.